It is 4 p.m. We're bringing developing news.
And the stories behind the headlines. This is Storycon. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Ed Lingao. Some stories you're watching this Thursday, May 22. President Marcos has called for the courtesy resignation of all cabinet secretaries. Marcos says it is time to realign the government, emphasizing the need for results, not politics or excuses. He warns that the time for complacency and comfort zones is over and promises to recognize those who deliver results.
The request for courtesy resignations is aimed at giving the President the elbow room to evaluate the performance of each department and determine who will continue to serve in line with his administration's recalibrated priorities. This is not about personalities, it's about performance, alignment, and urgency. Those who have delivered and continue to deliver will be recognized. But we cannot afford to be complacent. The time for comfort zones is over.
Malacanang clarified that cabinet members will remain in their positions until new appointees are named. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro says this is an opportunity for the CabSecs to prove they deserve to keep their positions. The composition of the review committee has yet to be announced. The Senate will officially convene as an impeachment court on June 3rd to issue summons and relevant orders in the trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. Before this, Senate President Cheese Escudero invited House prosecutors to appear on June 2 for the formal reading of the articles of impeachment. Duterte was, of course, impeached by the House on February 5 on charges including graft and betrayal of public trust.
And the Commission on Elections reveals over 17 million senatorial votes were not counted in the 2025 elections. That's due to the overvoting by 1.3 million voters. Earlier, some losing candidates allied with former President Duterte called for a manual recount, but COMELEC insists there are no discrepancies between ballot images and the official results. And joining us today, or not joining us today, is Tito Ronald because he's, I believe, mobile somewhere in Europe.
Still gallivanting somewhere in Europe.
Maybe looking for Harry. No, just joking.
Baka kasama siya sa team that will bring him back. But from the Philippine Star, Editor-in-Chief, Ami Pamintuan. Hi, Ami.
Hi.
Medyo...
Ano yung niya, nung cellphone niya. Nire-record mo pa yung cellphone sa room.
Yeah. I think he's flying to Rome today to get his phone back. Ito kasi mga matatanda, minsan... Teka,
Today.
Minsan be careful.
Kung hindi magta-telegram siya, medyo malabo dun sa telegram.
Ay, quiet day, no, Ami? Nothing much going on?
Oo nga. Kaya nga, iniintay lang namin kung sino yung hindi magre-resign na cabinet member.
Ito na yung great cabinet reset that no one saw.
Halos lahat naka-submit na.
Supposedly si Gadon daw, si Gadon daw said he's not covered, pero he was told daw, covered ka.
Hindi.
Pero alam ko, hindi advisor siya. Alam ko kapag advisor ka, cabinet rank, di ba?
Yeah. Hindi lang portfolio officials.
Poverty alleviation,
Oo.
That's cabinet rank.
Yes. And to be fair to him, he issued a statement after that saying he misunderstood the question. Sabi niya, at that time when he was asked, wala pang directive from Malacanang, on the guidelines for the resignation. Hindi niya alam, hindi niya na-realize na kasama siya. But after that, after he realized daw, nag-submit na siya ng resignation. Not that he is fighting it. Because how can you fight it, right? It's when you're asked a courtesy resignation, you have no choice but to hand it in.
He's the most controversial among all the... although he's been quiet, no? He's been quiet lately, but he's... also one of the most controversial cabinet appointees.
What does quiet mean in this instance? That's the question, because this is where they get assessed on everything, right? Narinig mo yung parameters ni Yusek Claire that she read. It was performance, alignment, urgency. So the question is, how will each person stack up to those, right? And who's gonna decide?
Sinabi niya ni President Marcos doon sa interview niya, di ba? Titignan nila yung mga nag-underperform. Saka bakit daw mabagal ang delivery ng services, hindi ba? So yan ang mga titingnan natin ngayon. Kaya marami speculation. Anyway,
Pero Bok,
the business community
that's the
welcomed
general
it.
reason
ha?
naman that's given all the time by everybody.
Pero normally talaga naman kapag ganitong may papasok na bagong Congress, we usually get a cabinet revamp.
Yeah. This,
Pag may incoming
but
Congress.
in varying degrees
this one was just pretty drastic.
It's not often that the president asks for a complete overhaul and demands the resignations of every member of the cabinet and the presidential assistants and appointees and so on down the line. I mean,
Unusual circumstances naman kasi tayo ngayon,
like si Digong napalitan niya ata kalahati ng gabinete niya pero unti-unti. I mean, hindi sabay-sabay, hindi yung one fell swoop na whoop, all the heads roll. Hindi ganoon eh. So doon
Hindi
siya
naman
naiiba.
natin alam na all the heads will roll dito. Ina-assess din yan.
All the heads will roll, ibabalik lang iba. Itatahi lang iba.
Well, Ami's right, no? Somebody backtracked and realized itong midterm election results were the worst for the incumbent, for the administration in 17, 18 years? Since 2009
Could be, kasi
yata.
midterm Pinoy okay naman.
Since GMA time. Oo.
Okay naman.
So since GMA time, so that's a long time, 17, 18 years yata yung since the last time that the incumbent won such few seats. So of course, he has to do something drastic.
Plus, I was backtracking a bit. Si Jimmy yung pinakamaraming cabinet revamp na total.
Hindi ba kailangan naman talaga?
With 9 years in office and puro controversial and her ratings turning negative, hindi rock bottom underground.
Below zero.
Underground.
Below zero talaga.
Below zero.
Yung net na
Below zero siya.
negative. So for example, she had a complete overhaul in 2004 August. Tapos also in 2005.
After Hello Garcia yun, that was amid the Hello Garcia scandal.
Yung July 2005, that's the second one. Ito yung 6 cabinet members resigned. Yung mga umalma na gabinete na
yung
in protest over the Hello Garcia among other things. Pero inunahan niya by announcing a cabinet revamp before they could announce their resignations. So that's the one.
Kasi itong dito sa kay Bongbong, meron ditong mga bagong-bago lang na mga cabinet member. I think they will be retained, most of them anyway.
Well, the newest
Yung
is
mga kauupo lang, di ba?
si OWA Administrator Patricia Caunan, who just sat down
Si
2 days ago.
Si Vince Season.
DICT. Yung DICT. Even Sani Angara, kailan lang yun kauupo lang after
Last
the other VP Sara.
And the one thing though is, of course, this is so drastic. So we're hearing from some of the business community that feel
they like it,
but others are uncomfortable kasi on our morning business show today, for instance, si Ed Francisco of BDO Capital said, investors are not going to like this uncertainty, right? So the takeaway there is the sooner the president puts in new appointees, the sooner the better it is, right? MBC, Makati Business Club, held a press con today as well, saying that they hope most of the CABSECs will be retained. And then the European Chamber of the Philippines naman said that they were underscoring the importance of ensuring stability, policy continuity, and of course, continued dialogue between government and business. So obviously, the whole business
Sinabi
community...
na yun ng government na yung economic trajectory naman daw na itutuloy pa din yung pursuit.
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring in our first guest for today. We have him already on Zoom. Former presidential spokesman Edwin Lacerda. Sir, magandang hapon and thank you for joining us this afternoon, Attorney Lacerda.
Hi, Ed.
Hi.
How are you?
We're okay, sir. How are you and what do you think of what happened today?
For me, it's a positive decision on the part of the president. Normally, you don't change horses midstream, but a number of factors I would tend to suggest that it's a good move on the part of the president. First of all, it's a refresh. It's like a page, you refresh a page because things don't seem to be doing well. You saw the elections results na talagang medyo medyo tinamaan talaga ang administrasyon. Like sinasabi nga kanina, this was the worst since 2007, panahon ni GMA. Not as bad as GMA, but at least, but overall, hindi nakuha ng administrasyon yung majority. No? The other thing kasi, despite the survey saying that they'll get 8 to 10 senators, you must recall that the numbers of the president himself were down already. His disapproval rating went down by as much as 17 points. So to a large degree, maybe a number of factors, no? The Iglesia vote, the Duterte votes, and also the disenchantment with the president himself because it seems to be nothing's happening. So this is a refresh, no? You refresh everything. And it's a revamp. It's really a revamp. But I would suggest and tama si Ami, you're not going to remove everyone there. I think the president said in the interview with Mr. Taberna that the government seems to be acting so slow. The government seems to be slow in responding. I would look into, if you are going to look into the departments or agencies that need to be revamped, it should be the frontliners. The frontline department agencies, yung mga agencies na talagang that deal directly with the people. Tulad ng DSWD, DA. Titingnan mo yung mga frontliners kasi ito yung mga sinasabi mga taong nakakaramdam na hindi kami tinutugunan, hindi kami pinapansin. So these are things that you tend to look at and see ito yung bellwether kung responsive ang gobyerno. Yung iba naman, like, look at the ICT. Tama sabi ni Ami, bago lang yung cabinet secretary, si Vince Dizon, frontliner yan. Maayos ang pag-manage niya ng DOTR. Very responsive, very public-facing si Vince, explains everything. So ito yung mga kailangan. But more importantly, one thing really na I think kailangan din ayusin ng gobyerno is the messaging. Yung messaging talagang ang laking problema. Kasi nga, the ill-timed arrest of Duterte, doon pumalo yung disenchantment lalo na because while the government was defending the arrest on the basis of legality, the Duterte family was really hitting them on the point of seeking empathy and awa from the people. Alam mo, mga Pilipino, madali tayong madalod. Ang very logical na sasabihin, kung nagawa yan sa presidente, pwede mayari sa akin. So, feel to emotion talagang ginawa. Lalabanan yan, Ami. Si Amin, sa media kayo. Kaya nga malakas ang drama talaga. They appeal to empathy. That's why the numbers went down. So that's a huge problem for this government. And they have to make, whether it's a symbolic act, whether it's a symbolic gesture, but I think it's a very positive gesture. And I tend to disagree na it creates uncertainty because so far, I don't think it will create uncertainty on the part of the finance or the Bangko Sentral. These are the agencies that deal directly with foreign investment. Policies will not change. I don't think Prof. Recto will be removed because maayos naman. And look, the inflation numbers went down. Here's the problem. It's a messaging problem. The numbers already went down. The inflation went down. The situation confronting the people, the problems, medyo bumaba ang presyo. So, and yet, mababa pa rin ang approval rating ng Pangulo. So, basahin talaga kung ano talaga yung messaging framework ng gobyerno. There seems to be and coming from someone who dealt with government comms, they don't have control of the narrative. It's like I said, very defensive sila there, and they're very tactical when they handle the messaging framework.
Right. Sec, Sec, we'll come back to your point on messaging because that's going to be a long conversation. Pero i-close ko lang yung loop around the DSW, your point about frontliners. What about DepDev, yung dating, what was formerly called NEDA? Because you're right, on the one hand, inflation has gone down, but on the other hand, we're talking about the signature campaign promise of 20 pesos a kilo rice. It hasn't been fulfilled. I mean, it was, if you count the fact that they started handing out heavily subsidized rice in the weeks leading up to the election. But wasn't it a little too late by then? So how would you assess the economy?
There's a saying by Governor Mario Cuomo, the father of the Cuomo brothers. And I use this a lot. You campaign in poetry, you govern in prose. it's easy to make promises. It's like President Trump, he makes so many promises. And what happened? When you govern already, it's very complicated. It's not as easy as making a promise. That's why reality set in when they recognize that 20 pesos is not so easy to do. So that it took them a while, and it did affect them because you make promises. If you make promises you don't keep, or you make promises that are delayed, people remember that. So it did happen. And by the way, it wasn't. I don't think it's a NEDA issue because the NEDA, in the case of RC Balisacan, and I can vouch for his competence, they set the short-term, medium-term, and long-term development plan. I don't think there's a problem there, and I think they're very, insofar as the BOI, the PESA, all these investor-related functions are being done wonderfully. There really seems to be a problem on the frontline agencies which deal with the kitchen table issues of the country. And that's why the 20 pesos really got affected by that. It came too late. When it came in, it was only applied in the Visayas. Now that's being rolled out. And maybe that will turn the time because you've got the next 3 years. And that's why I think messaging-wise, the president should also, he's already made a pivot here on the resignation, asking for the resignation of the cabinet members. The next thing that he has to do is to make another pivot and set out his last 3 years through the State of the Nation address, because that's the only way that he can speak to the people. The president can say, I recognize my shortcomings. Here's what I intend to do for the next 3 years.
Yes, sir. To your point, sir.
Maganda actually, mabango actually ang administration until late last year. Dahil dun sa Quadcom, di ba? Nagka-windang-windang lang no nag-umpisa yung scandal over the budget. And in fact, it's one of the factors that's being blamed dun sa pagbagsak ng ratings at saka naka-apekto din daw dun sa chances ng alyansa. Hindi makaalis-alis eh. Nadagdag na yung impeachment, nadagdag na of course yung arrest. Ngayon, alam naman natin kung sinong may kagagawan dyan sa budget. Sa tingin mo, after the changes in the cabinet, kailangan ba din siyang mag-change ng alam naman natin, it's supposed to be independent, now sa Congress, leadership ng both chambers of Congress. At tingin mo, he should push for a leadership change as well, incoming 20th.
I mean, this is medyo political gossip na to, but I've been hearing, you know that for a fact that it's been bandied around that there will be a leadership change in at least in the House. There seems to be a strong talk there that there's going to be a leadership change. But it's really, I've heard so many anecdotes about how widespread the draft is. So parang it's something that people should also recognize that how are we, maybe the president is immune from that point, pero yung tama ka, yung budget, ang laking problema. In fact, talagang naging very, very political. At yung ginawang budget, hindi ayon sa development plan ng ating bansa eh. Paka-short term talaga, pang-election budget talaga ito. And we know that. I mean, you've been exposed to government so long. I've been in government. And we know if it's an election budget or a really socially development budget eh. So it really did affect them. And the fact that naging unity team talagang nabuwag kasi nga talagang they were going after Vice President Sara for good reason, whether it's for good or not.
Yeah.
Talagang nakabiyak nung pagsasama nila. And ang problema dito talaga, sa totoo lang to, yung Quadcom maganda yung paglatag ng evidence.
Yes.
Pero bakit naging you are on the right, you are on the offensive, you have all the evidence on hand, and suddenly you became so defensive. It's really, again, what happened to your messaging? You were already on the right. And it did evidence that the numbers of the Vice President did go down because of the Quadcom hearings. And then suddenly, ano nangyari? And then happened the ill-timed arrest of President Duterte na they were able to massage it and make it sila pa ang naapi. I mean, these are things na yung messaging framework ng gobyerno. They were on the offense and they just lost the grasp control on the narrative. Eh.
Yes, sir. To your point about messaging, whether it's budget or bigas, if you look at the time of former President Duterte, ang dami niyang bitawang pangako na hindi natupad, from 6 months to get rid of drugs, to
Traffic.
erase crime in 2 months, to jet ski to West Philippine Sea and all that. In the end, people don't remember that anymore. He just laughed it off and even laughed at people who believed him, and he got away with it.
What's the difference? Diba?
Difference is, and this is something that the people in media, there's the fear factor. There's a fear. You have to acknowledge that there was a fear factor. It was the EJK, all the killings were front and center, and what we may say as a violation of human rights, the people, and I'm not justifying this, the people on the ground in those areas affected. I've seen it in some people I spoke to. It's bad, but it cleansed the community. So ang tumatatak din sa kanila, yun yung this is the dichotomy of the Filipino values, where as much as we value the dignity of human rights, we see the violation, but in the community at the very micro level, there was peace and order. Natakot mga drug lord, nakakauwi ako and these are the common anecdotal statements I'm sure that you've heard. I can go home safely in the evening alone, walang takot. So at that point, the peace and order was really an issue, and they were able to do it in a very, very violent way. Now that that's over, we've seen, and the problem is medyo tumaas ang presyo. So that thing naman, tatak talaga yan sa ating tiyan. Yun ang naalala ng tao right now. So, and plus, yung gulo talaga kasi yung panahon ni Duterte, sino bang army ba? Was the entire the countrymen going against, criticizing the president? Hindi eh. Dito talaga, social media, lahat binabanatan ng Pangulo dahil sa ang dami talagang mga disinformation, fake news. Talagang kinulang talaga yun sa akin yung messaging kasi it's really, information is, media does not have the monopoly on information anymore.
Yep.
Now you can get your information from anywhere. You will believe in the echo chamber that you belong to. That's why there's no one sense of truth, one source of truth. Madadala ka talaga. And if you control that segment, you can sway the people eh. Ang sa akin lang talaga, malaking bagay yung, tama ka rin na despite malaki yung maraming hindi na tupad na pangako, pero nung panahon ni Pangulong Duterte, maraming siyang ginawa, pinababa niya yung tax natin, yung maraming bagay na it compensated for all the lack of the lack of fulfillment of the promises he made during the campaign. So that's where we are right now. And now and also there was no strong opposition during the time of Duterte because everybody was just scared. Sa atin ngayon, look, the vice president who was his former unity member is a very opposition right now to him. Not even the liberals, not even the Dilawan. So talagang very, well, this speaks well of the democratic space that we're now enjoying naman, in fairness to this administration. And so that's where the problem is, and that's why I really think that hopefully that will reset the next 3 years, because if it doesn't reset it, it will be chaotic, and chaos is not something, and that's where Ed Francisco is right in saying it will create uncertainty. Chaos creates uncertainty. A reset, the very least sets, let's start from square one. Diba? Dito yung mag-umpisa. And then that's where he makes all his commitments now, a new, maybe perhaps a new commitment to better things, improve things, the conditions of the people, the condition of the country. So that's where I think maganda yan. Sana magpatuloy. Siyempre, but the only problem right now is the incoming impeachment trial, which will, I'm sure, cause some division, some would sow confusion also. That's a big headache for the administration. How do you move forward at the same time? I'm sure Vice President Duterte will not keep silent. He will keep on continuing to lambast and criticize this administration.
Sir, if I may, sir.
Attorney, you're identified with
Sorry?
Ami, go ahead. Go ahead, Ami.
Attorney, you're identified with the traditional opposition. Are you seeing opportunities here? Dahil wala nang pag-asa yung kahit even if there are calls for reconciliation, I think wala na yan wala na mangyayari dyan With the collapse of the unit team, ano yung nakikita niyo opportunities for the opposition? The traditional, hindi yung new opposition.
you look at the votes. If you're, ang gawin din nating benchmark muna is the midterm elections. No? Ano nakuha ni boto ni Bongo? 26 million. In last 2019, 2022, Robin Padilla also got 26 million. So if that's a proxy of the Duterte votes, and by the way, the vote of Robin Padilla may not necessarily be just Duterte votes. So, kasi that was at the time a coalition of the Marcos and the Duterte forces. Dito sa 26, dito sa latest midterm elections, Bongo also got 26 million. And these are purely Duterte votes yan. And if you look at the yellow and the pink clown votes, they got 15 million. Ang benchmark ni VP Lenny in 2022 was she got 15 million. The same as Pangilinan. Si Bam, umakyat siya ng 5 million votes. But you forget the Bam thing because that's an endorsement of INC. Merong ano yan. Plus may command votes yan kasi nakisuyo sila. Like, you only have a fill-up rate of 8 votes. So, nakisuyo sila, whether it's by administration or what, napasok itong dalawa. Kaya umakyat. But you see there, buhay ngayon yung, like you said, no, the opposition forces, no, the pink and the yellow votes, umakyat siya. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, on your point kanina about the frontliners, the need to focus on the frontline agencies and the frontline secretaries. Let's zoom in dun sa Department of Agriculture. We do remember na si Pangulong Marcos tried to emphasize the need to address agriculture by for so many months he was the agriculture secretary concurrently, and now he's already appointed Chu Laurel. What else can he do to push the agriculture issue forward and make it work? Kasi parang he made the promise for 20 pesos, he committed himself to agriculture, and then now we're nowhere near the price that he's claiming. What else can he do?
You know, it's really, agriculture is really a very difficult position, a very difficult department to handle because if there's always a claim of any administration, including our own, you always like to try to do rice sufficiency. Mm. We know for a fact that we don't have a Mekong River that will irrigate our lands, no? Maybe central Pampanga, central Luzon, but beyond that, wala tayong Mekong River na nakaka-irrigate naturally ng mga rice land. That's why ang mahal ng ating rice. That's why in our time, RC Balisacan also favored import rice because it's cheaper to import rice. Pero political commodity si rice. So, so Q Laurel's job is to really, however, what one should do, try to lower the price of rice, try to find high-yield agricultural products. Ito yung mga talagang magagawa mo. And then try to create more irrigation, build more irrigation canals or ditches. It's really, the one very controversial one is you corporatize talaga farming kasi wala kang economies of scale eh. If you're only planting 1 hectare lang versus someone who plants 10 hectares, yung economies of scale niyan, kung lahat yan pwede mo gawing mag-economies of scale, lahat yan, isama mo yung, it's a very controversial plan na doing corporate farming eh. But that's one way of lowering the price talaga. But that's really on the agricultural side. But see, that's the challenge right now. I don't know how they did the 20 pesos, which they were able to do. And let's hope they were able to do that, no? Because that's really something na talagang mararamdaman talaga ng taong bayan. Si Octa nga was saying that self-rated poverty went down already.
Pero sir, yung 20 pesos, that's a subsidy of 16 pesos per kilo.
Exactly. Exactly.
You can actually bring it down to 10 if you're going to subsidize it.
Then it becomes a 20
You
peso
can go as
subsidy.
far as making it free, actually, if you're going to subsidize.
You're right, no? Subsidy is good kung, number one, kung may pera ang gobyerno, kung maayos ang paggawa ng budget ng bansa. But at the same time, at the end of this whole thing, subsidy will bite you at the back in the end. Kasi at some point, it becomes unsustainable. That's a problem with subsidies eh. So, isa yun. Isang frontliner din yung DSWD. How do you make that pantawid pa?
Yung ayuda.
Yung ayuda. Ang problema ng ayuda natin ngayon is very political yung ayuda mo.
Yes.
Politicize, hindi tulad ng, let me just hark back to our time. Yung 4 piece. Talagang
For peace.
yan. Yung 4 piece, talagang mahirap na mahirap. May talagang may datos yan. We in fact got World Bank to fund us. Can you just track who are the poorest of the poor, or what we call the fifth quintile? So talagang by and large, walang politika yan. Meron nagsasabi political, pero by and large, apolitical yan, talagang kung sino mang mahirap. Yun ang dapat ginagawa. Yung ayuda ngayon kasi, kilala ni ganito, kilala ni ganyan, bibigyan mo ng pera. Paano matutuwa ang taong bayan yung mga mahihirap na talaga hindi natutulungan? So, it has been politicized. It's a problem here in the country when it comes to, and that's why the whole idea of the ayuda being done near or very near the election, that's already sends a signal that this is an election budget. Diba? So, people will, and there are smart people in the academics who are not afraid to say, or politicians will not to say, this is an election budget. So kung talagang seryoso gobyerno natin, kung talaga, kaya naman gawin. Kasi ang kailangan natin, we have to, the other side of it is, in order to do all those things, you have to grow the pie. Kumbaga yung palakihin mo yung ekonomiya. Para natin kaya lumaki yung ekonomiya ng panahon ni Pinoy, kaya we spend more in social development, sa 4Ps. Maraming social budget na dinivote talaga sa social development. So yun naman ang sinasabi natin na kung gusto mong gumanda ang buhay natin, palaki ng ekonomiya, at saka maayos na pagtustos ng pera ng bayan. Yun lang naman yan. And you will see, magagawa naman natin. By the way, this is something I'll tell you. One economist told me this. Pag hindi magaling ang gobyerno, pabayaan mo ang ekonomiya, we will still grow at 5% GDP. Kung maayos ang gobyerno, magaling ang humawak, aakyat tayo to 7, 8 GDP. Yun ang kailangan natin kasi we have so much economic activity right now in the country that we can generate easily 5% GDP.
I agree.
So we invest in Southeast Asia. But if you have a good country with administration that can manage the economy well, make sure that the money is not being spent frivolously, then you can grow the budget and spend the money wisely. And the economy will grow. Foreign investors will come in. There are two things that foreign investors would like to see in any country. It's the predictability and predictability of rules. Hindi nagbabago basta-basta. And all things being equal, what do you call that? Yung pantay-pantay lahat ng tingin. Diba?
And the rule of
Equity.
law. And rule of law, of course. For the rule of law to prevail.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why that was the emphasis of Pinoy during our time. Level playing field, predictability and level playing field. And people will come in, and we saw that in the courtesy calls of the press during our time. The foreign investors would come in and say, we like your governance because your rules are predictable, you don't seem to favor anyone. And the rule of law was really a problem even during our time. That's still a struggle up till now. But nonetheless, we make an effort to practice good governance, regardless of any administration. We should be doing that. We should really be very, very predictable and really level the playing field. And I think that will work well for the investors.
Sec, I just wanted to make a quick correction. Self-rated poverty actually has gone up. We're now at 55% according to the April SWS survey. So that's pretty high.
I was looking at the Okta survey that Ranjit Rai mentioned a while ago.
Right, but in any case, it still supports your point about governance and the economy. Pero I wanted to come back to your point about messaging, about how they let the messaging get away from them. And one thing that we here in media like to keep coming back to is that fateful night on March 12 when President Duterte was being, what's the right verb?
Brought to, flown to.
Carted off to the plane, right?
Bundled off.
Bundled off to the plane. That was a few hours after that. President Marcos took the stage, and he rarely speaks, freely publicly, pero he took to the stage, and basically the message was, we had no choice because we were following the law because we have a relationship with Interpol, and so we rely on Interpol for help. So now that they've asked us for help to capture Duterte, we had to give him up, something like that. I'm sure you watched it. What did you think of it, and what could have been done better there?
But whenever something is very controversial, you try to shield your principle. Unfortunately, for one reason or another, the president felt that he should come out and explain the whole thing, which, and in his statement, made it appear that he was helpless. We had no choice. We have to follow. I would have rather, by the way, in terms of executing the arrest of former President Duterte, it was executed pretty well. Everybody was caught off, at least the Duterte side was caught off guard. It was, by and large, executed very well. However, that's why when they were doing the explanation, we would have rather shielded the president, and whoever planned that arrest should be the one to speak to the public. Because there's no way for a very unpopular decision, and you've seen the country divided, you've seen the forces being polarized already, and then you come in hoping to be, it's hard for you to be to bring them together, because it's at the height of the anger of the Duterte side. You can't bring them in, especially you're invoking something legal, something, our hands are tied. I mean, you're the president, how can you say it? That's why that's why the people are saying, how can you allow President Duterte to be prosecuted outside that? Which I don't agree. I think ICC really has the jurisdiction to do that. But the point was, you further weakened him because you made him front and center in a very controversial decision. I would have rather that someone who executed this whole arresting be the one to talk to the public. And so at the very least, it shields him away. But now that you see President Marcos speaking to the public, ikaw ang arkitekto nito.
Dapat hindi siya promonta. Parang dapat hindi siya yung promonta.
Talaga naman siya kasi.
Exactly nga, pero...
He took full responsibility for it.
Yes, but then you can take full responsibility, but when do you want to do that? O parang medyo doon naging problematic yun. It's really a problem because perception-wise, it just solidified. Pero, you can still make a room for doubt. Kasi, yes, what did he say? Ano ba sinasabi niya previous to that? I will not allow ICC to do so and so here or whatever was stated. May mga ganun siyang statement eh. Pero ngayon, lumabas ka sa harapan at sinabi mo, essentially, wala akong magagawa. So, sino ang desisyon na papasukin sila? Di ikaw eh. So wala nang wiggle room si Pangulong Marcos. At the very least, pinyari, kung sino yung whether it was DOJ or DND, sila liwanag. Kasi tandaan mo, ang may kasabihan, and this is something na sinasabi sa amin ni Pinoy, pag nagpaliwanag ka, talo ka na. Simple, yan yung ganun kasimpleng, talagang, kaya anong ginagawa ng itong spokesperson ng administrasyon? Anong ginagawa? Panay paliwanag. Anong ginagawa nila Duterte? Panay banat. It's really that comms thing is really, that's why you make a decision. Do we bring him out? Do we not bring him out? What do we say? Yung mga ganon. Sana ako sa akin, I would have cautioned him not to appear.
But that's the thing, that's the point then, no, Sec? Because all roads lead to Malacanang. I mean, how could, how could it have happened without Malacanang greenlighting it? So everybody kind of already knew.
Several departments involved dyan eh. And that's the PNP, and that's the airport. Alam niyo mangyayari dyan, kung hindi siya nag-front, tatanungin din siya ng mga reporter eh. Alam niyo kung ano nangyari.
Wala akong problema doon. Alam natin na siya yun. Pero ang point of view mo is perception and timing eh. Perception and timing, habol mo naman dyan eh. Yung perception, siya muna lumabas, may magkakaroon ng agam-agam. Hindi, pwede mo sabihin, hindi naman siya ang architect yun, silang gumawa niyan. Pero timing, galit na galit ang tao sa lumabas ka. Pupa ka muna ng magpaliwanag ka kung gusto mo sabihin yan. At another time, pwede namang huwag siya kaagad lumabas eh. These are all hindsight, by the way. I may be wrong, but you're asking what would have I done differently? I would have done that differently. It's a very, very sensitive issue. I'll give you an example. Nung hinuli si GMA nung sa airport, lumabas ba si Pangulo Aquino? Hindi. Sino lumabas?
Si Dilima nag-front doon.
Exactly.
Si Dilima.
Pasensya na, pero I mean, Laila is a very good friend of mine. Pero ano nangyari? Siya ang pinagtuunan ng galit ni GMA.
Kaya nakulong ng 6 na taon.
Exactly, di ba? Parang punto ko lang nga, sino ang humarap ka,
Yeah.
di ngayon ang galit, sa iyo nakapunto. So that's where it's not about claiming responsibility. We know he's the architect. Tama ka, Ami. Ang daming agencies yan. Imposibleng walang coordination lahat yan eh. It's like, imposibleng walang go signal ng nakakataas. Pero, yun yung punto doon. Yung comms dyan, yung messaging mo dyan. Labas ka ba? Kaya yun na nangyari.
And also the optics. Kasi may mga nagsasabi, Sec, na he should have taken that opportunity to double down and show his strong leadership to say, okay, yes, I take responsibility for it. Ako'y nagpakulong because they showed.
Yes, that's right. But, you know, what he mentioned, diba, he wanted to be like Machiavelli right now. But, honestly, President Marcos is such a nice guy. He's a very decent guy. I mean, have you seen him super mad? Like Duterte? No, you've never seen him Superman. It's not his character. Now he wants to show fear. Well, let's see. If you can do that, why not? If he thinks that it will change the narrative. But that at that point in time, that wasn't how that's not his real character kasi. That's why he never thought of doubling down on the arrest of Duterte.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to have to leave that there for now, as much as we still want to talk to you. But thank you so much for joining Storycon and your insights today. Attorney Edwin Lacerda, former spokesperson to the late President Noynoy Aquino. Thank you so much,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Attorney.
We've got developing news in the stories behind the headlines. Welcome back to the Storycon or the Story Conference. I'm Ed Lingao.
I'm Regina Lay, still with us. Ami Pamintun of the Philippine Star.
Ami, ano balita sa inyo? Any new...
And you have 5 minutes.
Sorry, what was that?
Ayan. Hintay namin kung sinong hindi magre-resign.
Meron bang may lakas loob na sabi?
Wala, I'm checking. Everyone...
Wala. Pati si Executive Secretary nag-courtesy resignation na eh.
Pati yung mga heads of TESDA, MMDA,
Yeah.
they're all
MMDA
resigned.
is cabinet rank eh. Saka si Frederick Go, of course.
Of course.
Yung mga ano.
I keep checking the list. Halos lahat, everyone's here. ARTA din, Anti-Red Tape Authority.
Yeah. Yung mga cabinet rank.
But I wonder who the president will consult on who to keep or who to put
That
in.
is the key here.
Kasi if he removed everybody in the cabinet already,
Kaya nga eh.
Who's going to assess everyone, right?
kumbaga sino yung mga kachokaran niya sa lamesa na, tama ba, kachokaran?
Gusto niyo ibang story, meron daw BFAR vessel na water cannon na naman ng China.
Talaga saan yan? Masinloc or sa ano?
BFAR, oo. Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources. Natira na naman daw ng China Coast Guard
Saan
ng
yan?
water cannon.
Saan?
Hinihintay pa namin yung detalye. Ayan si ayan na yung cellphone niya, nakabalik si
Andiyan na si Ronald.
Kumustahin mo? Tuwan-tuwa kasi natuloy yung cabinet resignation.
Laki ng ngiti, oh.
Kumustahin mo?
Ronald, kumusta yung telepono mo?
Wala akong kinalaman doon ha. Si Ami yung nagtanong eh.
Ronald, nakuha mo na yung cellphone mo.
Inihintay ko pala ngayon. Nantay ko dito.
Hinihintay pa.
Nakalanding ko lang sa Rome.
So anong
Saan
gagawin?
yan? You're still at the airport.
Nantay ko yung cellphone tsaka pagkain iniwan ko rito.
So you're still at the airport.
Yeah.
Sa Rome. Kararating lang from Vienna. Dito ako sa Italy.
Ayun.
Italy. Uy, ang daming masarap dyan na pagkain.
Siyami talaga.
Italy.
Saka maganda, pwede mo kami dalang chocolate from Italy, ha?
But
Sino na ba matatanggal? Principal Reg.
Ang unang-unang nag-submit daw ng resignation si Vince, ha?
tsaka hindi ganun kadami, Ronald, because
Pustahan yun ang hindi matatanggal. Si Vince.
Yung mga bago siguro, hindi yun ang sabi ko.
Kaka-point lang niya eh.
Palagay ko, hindi matatanggal yung mga bagong-bago.
correct.
Pustahan yun ang hindi
Okay,
matatanggal. Si Vince.
ganito na lang.
Balikan natin.
Ganito na lang. Let's talk about who is in the line of fire.
Sino na ang
sa tingin mo?
Tingin ko yung Secretary of Energy na sa line of fire.
Bakit?
Nag-pay siya na pababain yung kuryente. Tapos ang dami niyang excuse. Kalawa, yung Secretary of Health na sa line of fire yan. No, wala masyadong nagawa sa kwan. Kahapon nga, di ba, may mga utang sa mga private hospitals.
Yes.
Yung tourism, posible. dahil yung kanyang target na tourism, ang laki ng hindi naabot.
Yes.
Diba? Yung tourism, no? 4-5 million yata yung hindi naabot na tourist. So, ibig sabihin, epic failure yun.
Tapos hindi pa na-deliver ang Cebu.
Oh. Tapos,
Ibang usapan yun.
kaapat yung Secretary of Agriculture. Dahil dinadrag ng agriculture yung ating economy. Diba? Pababa. Hindi ko alam sa economic team yung vulnerable. Dahil ang problema sa ating economic team, hindi nare-reach yung economic targets. Pababa yung economic growth targets natin. Diba? Tapos yung mga social indicators, bumababa rin, like self-rated poverty, involuntary hunger. So, somebody has to pay for that. No?
Education.
So, yung executive secretary, vulnerable din. Dahil ang linchpin sa lahat ng gobyerno, yung executive secretary. Siya yung tumatahi ng lahat ng yan. Pero parang kapos. No? Kapos yung...
At maraming Ronald, matagal nang maraming naglalabi sa posisyon na yon, ha?
Sa
Yes.
ES?
Yung
Uy,
ES.
hindi ako naglalabi, ha. Linawin natin, baka sabihin ni Ami, naglalabi ako ang maging executive
Ikaw
secretary.
talaga, Ronald. Everything leads to you, no?
Yung interior, Ronald, yung interior. Kasi mag-iiba ng ng target sa drug war.
May konting vulnerability din si John Vic dahil yung crime at least,
Yes.
indication tumataas, lalo na yung mga dramatic kidnapping. So, vulnerable din siya. Pero actually, Ami, long overdue na yan Yung cabinet, di ba? Tagal na natin pinag-uusapan yan, di ba?
Oo.
Yes.
Mapait yung presidente mo Pero dun sa kanyang interview kay Tonying, ano sabi
Nice
niya?
guy siya
I would rather be feared. I would rather be feared.
Oo nga,
Pero-
maybe lang, maybe.
Pero,
Maybe lang yung
pa.
feared niya, maybe lang.
Maybe pa no?
so now he's
Minsan
real.
mo na-
Now
minsan mo
he's
na sasabihin na dapat i-fear ka. Meron pang qualification.
Maybe
Oh,
feared
why?
is better.
Parang parang Arneo magsalita No? Yung
Ronald.
ambivalent, tentative. Alam mo kami
Fear
sa
is-
USTE, wala
Sabi na nga,
tentativeness.
Ronald, fear is always, ruling by fear is always better. Ngayon lang niya na-realize halfway through his term. Di ba mga principal ganun nag-rule? Always with a stick. What about si Soljan Guevara?
Ayun, matagal nang dapat tinanggal yun. Hindi naman sa kanya yun Loyalty ni Guevara
Kasi yun yan, no?
kay Digong
Kaklasmate siya ni First Lady.
Pero di ba sinabi mo na hindi mo pwedeng i-represent ang gobyerno? Ilang trabaho mo, Solgen? Anong trabaho mo, Solgen? Kasuhan si Laila de Lima? Yun
Yan ang
Okay.
problema.
kaso
Bok.
Yung binabawi yung akwita ni Laila de Lima. Tapos yung trabaho mo na i-represent yung gobyerno, hindi mo ginawa. Kahit classmate ka, lagay ka na lang doon sa mga board. Yung mga board of directors para doon ka kumita. Diba?
Education, defense, National Security Council.
Bago lang yung education
Oh.
Bago lang yung education
And everybody
Kaya,
seems to like
sigurado
Sunny
No? Yung National Security Council, mukhang masaya naman yung presidente.
Yes.
Although may dynamics yung Secretary of National Defense at National Security Council. Yun naman, medyo nakalantad yung ganun dynamics. Dapat i-resolve nila yan. Baka tamaan sila pareho. Dahil napakahalaga ng security. Sabi ni Ami, meron na namang harassment sa BIFAR. Diba? So, hindi pwedeng magsintonado yung ating security framework. Merong de-escalation, merong defense. Diba? So, kailangan isang kumpas lang yung security, hindi factionalized.
Yung environment.
Yung environment, hindi masyadong maingay, pero mukhang steady naman yung trabaho. Hindi siya masyadong maingay, di ba? Hindi siya epal.
Sila rin ka doon.
Pero sigurado ko yung DOTR, hindi matatanggal yun Dahil
Paupo lang
daming
I shouldn't
low-hanging
laugh.
fruits na
Oo.
ginagawa.
Uy, Ron, si Ed,
Sila rin
last
ka doon.
question.
Ano?
Sila rin ka doon.
Sino?
Larry ka doon.
Si Larry Gadon.
Yun yung pinakamagaling sa cabinet. No? Yun yung pinakamagaling. No? Dapat hindi lang tanggalin yun
Ikaw talaga.
Dapat gawin ko siya.
Executive
Gawin ng
Secretary.
rebulto. This is exactly what shouldn't be done sa anti-poverty campaign. Siya yung gagawa ng rebulto.
Ikaw talaga.
Exactly what we can do without sa anti-poverty campaign.
Na-disbar na nga.
Anti-poverty czar, no? Imaginein mo yun. Ako, Diyos ko po.
Oh, MMDA.
Medyo
MMDA, cabinet rank yan, MMDA.
Oo, pero hindi ko alam dahil
Hoy,
hindi siya naririnig Hindi, di ba? Hindi naririnig Yung MMDA.
Okay.
Teka Ronald, pang TBS na lang yun mamaya kasi overtime na tayo.
Oh, watch TBS na lang. So the ones who still want to hear Ronald's recommendations.
Big
Oo,
story ka na lang mamaya.
marami pa akong babanatan Kaya hindi dapat ako political pundit
Kaya nga
dapat ang political pundit neutral, objective.
Political
detached.
heckler ka nga.
Political heckler, tawag ko sa kanya. Political heckler.
heckler ka
Hindi yung
nga.
tinatawag niyo akong pundit, di man ako pundit.
Okay, from now on, I'm gonna call you political heckler. Okay.
Ayun, pwede mo
Heckler
yun.
tawag ko.
Yung parang sa Muppet Show, yung dalawang matatanda doon sa balkonahe, yung ganun.
Thanks for...
After nitong, sorry ko na ito, nadagdagan na naman ng libo-libo yung galit sa akin.
Okay, thanks so much for joining Storycon today. Ami Pamintuan, Editor-in-Chief of the Philippine Star. And yun nga, as we were just saying, political heckler Ronald Llamas live to us from Italy. Join us again tomorrow 4 p.m. for Storycon. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Ed Lingao. We are One News, all sides, all the time.